All right, this segment, I'm going to talk a little bit about set design, how things look on camera. First of all, clothing. It's a big deal. A lot of people think they can just wear whatever in front of a camera. Just happen to have a shirt right here that's got every check pattern you can possibly think on, or you think about. It is got things going crossways and upways and downways and sideways and all kinds of things like that, and creating with this effect called a moire effect. So using that, yes, I am purposely moving it around, using that to see that it creates waves in your video, and you don't want that. You want to wear something solid typically, or something just vertical, not tight striped. Something horizontal, but not tight striped. You don't want to wear a lot of plaids and stuff in there, because that could even cause problems. Flowered shirt, probably not a Hawaiian flowered shirt, but something with a little bit of a print on it is usually okay, as long as it's not tight. Because those tight things, the camera can't keep up with it. Because if you think about the cameras is a series of lines. Whatever frame rate, whatever resolution you're shooting in, whether it's a 1080, 1080, or 1080 lines in a thing, or 720 lines in a shot, which are typical HD versions of our camera shoots. And that way, those lines don't get caught between other lines, because video itself will cut out every other line, every other frame. So you'll have these lines in one frame, and the next frame you'll have the other lines. That way it creates smooth video. And that is called refresh rates. So these refresh rates, 60 hertz, 30 hertz, 120 hertz, whatever you're doing, or even 25, which cinema cameras use a lot, are using this interlaced video to create the image. You just can't perceive it because it's going so fast. These are 120 per second frame rates, 60 per second frame rates, 30 per second frame rates. So keep that in mind when you're trying to do that. That's why striped shirts, tight patterns just don't work, because it's not one big image. It's several images, several lines going on at the same time. Talking about set designs as part of that, you want to make sure that your set design kind of matches your shirts. You don't want a lot of tight lines, you don't want a lot of weird things, you don't want your lighting to be at a different frame rate as your video. And so if you're shooting in 60 hertz or 30 hertz, you want to make sure that your lights are either running at that or double that, to make sure that you don't get that jumping in the lights, including dimming, because dimming can affect that. So making sure that it looks good on camera before you broadcast it to the world. So frame rates are huge in video. I have to check every light I buy. That's why I do a demo situation a lot of times. It's like I'll try a light out before I actually buy a bunch of them, and they end up not working. So keep that in mind. Other things that you can think about for your set designs: cups, pieces of paper, random things that aren't being used for your video shoot, unless it's a background, don't need to be in your shot. Part of what I do is kind of police that. I want to make sure that the drummer is not sitting there with a water bottle on his low tom, that he's had there all rehearsal, and then we go into actually do a video shoot and it's right there. And so that has to go away. So keeping your set clean. Other things about sets, it doesn't have to be an elaborate LED wall, although we'd all love to have one of those. Not all LED walls are made the same. They even have different refresh rates. So you can go to Home Depot, you can go to Lowe's, you can create your set from random things. I built one set out of rain guttering and LED tape, and created an LED lighting fixture. And so that created a background. One time, usually I try to match my set to whatever whatever sermon series we're going through. We're doing a sermon series called The Prodigal. I struggled with it, trying to figure out what to do for this, and ended up getting mini blinds, because I can think about the father looking through the mini blinds, waiting for his son to come. So I used these mini blinds and then took LED fixtures and washed those up the mini blinds to create shadows and lights. And I could even use, we have a few moving lights and things like that too that I could put patterns across, and it would break up those patterns so they don't always look the same. I can use haze, which is a little bit of a fog in the air, to create beams of light. Whatever you do, you don't just want to have a black background, because the person in front of your camera tends to disappear, especially if they're wearing a dark color. If they're wearing a bright color, usually it's okay if your lighting's good, but it gives no visual interest to what's going on the set. So, whether you're in a drama production or just a straight video shoot or something like that, put something behind there, even if it's the band instruments lit in a different color, to create your background. That will help your video immensely. And then you want your background separate from your talent in front of your camera. So make sure that there's enough distance between those to give a depth of field, so that your camera focuses on the talent and puts your background in a little bit of a blur. So that way it becomes a non-distracting set piece. So keep that in mind with using set pieces as a distraction or a non-distraction. Keep those distractions to a minimum.